At Commons, one of the really fun things we get to do on Sunday nights is open up some space for question and response after the sermon. And so this is the question and response from this Sunday's sermon. If you're interested in listening to the full thing, we will put a link down in the description below. And sometimes there's often some really interesting ideas and rabbit trails, tangents that we get to explore because of the questions that arise from within community.
My question is, this secret that Jesus is trying to keep, that he doesn't want to get out, that he is the Messiah, that his disciples and the people he's healing shouldn't go around spreading this, at least not yet. Is that just in your argument so that they have more time to get to that conclusion themselves?
So it's a good question. Scholars argue about this one, and we have for 2,000 years. I think there's probably a lot of layers to this. I think in the narrative structure of Mark, part of this is clearly that Jesus does not want to provoke the final confrontation until the time is right. We call this, the fullness of time, that kind of idea. So there's definitely part of that going on. So that's overlaid over all of it. That Jesus wants to get to Jerusalem first. He wants the confrontation to happen there. He wants things to unfold in a particular way. My argument here is that there's another layer to it, a more subtle layer underneath that Mark is, I think, building as well. I think Mark is preserving certain moments for like this here, where it's the disciples who get to actually say it, right? Because there's a story moments earlier where the demons are on the verge of it, and Jesus is like, no, don't tell anybody. But here he lets the disciples say it. And it's really that turning point, because now the story really starts to shift towards Jerusalem. And so it's definitely about the larger arc, but I think Mark wants you to pick up on the interpersonal moment for Peter here, right? To finally get to say what he's been hoping for all along. So I don't think it's just as simple as the sermon tonight, but I think that is very much one of the layers that Mark is putting in there, if that's fair. Mami?
I think the idea of the Messianic Secret is one of those things that we will continue to run into as long as we're in relationship with these texts, so I hope for the rest of our lives. And I think that it can be so easy to be like, what does that mean again? Like, what? I know I should know the answer to this. But I love the way Jeremy modeled this kind of layering to these terms. I think devotionally, we can live into these ideas of like, what's the Messianic secret? What's happening? What are the many layers? But then what's the invitation it's kind of calling to us, which was so beautiful to think about this sort of sacred space around our stories, to lean into how we would give expression to who Jesus is to us. So I'd encourage us to like hold these ideas like they're sort of traveling companions, but they're like little punks too, because it can be really hard to wrap our minds around something like the Messianic Secret. Like you said, we've been wondering about it for many, many, many years.
I also think, your answer really leads back into the conversation we had 2 weeks ago, where you renamed the Messianic Secret the Messianic Mystery. But the idea that it's not a secret, it's not like Jesus is trying to hold things back from us. It's that he's trying to entice us and invite us to continue. So I should have not used Messianic Secret. I should have used our new language from Bobby, Messianic Mystery. But I think that's it, right? It's the same thing you're talking about tonight. It's this invitation. It's not a wall to keep you at a distance. It's this like thread to pull you in a little bit. How's that? Let's take one more question and text. We got one here. Sure.
Clean or unclean, or like that type of thing. I think it's just a choice in our lives to make. And I was looking at that and I'm like, I always say choices can become our consequences in our lives. And when we have those consequences, it's too late.
Sometimes I think the beauty of the gospel is, even if it's too late, it's not too late, right? We can always start again. We can always begin again. And if our choices have been very common, very ordinary, very selfish, you can always wake up tomorrow and you can choose to be a person who is taking one step towards the path of Christ and to become someone new and different. I think that's the beauty of it, right? Is that it's never too late, even when it feels like it sometimes. But I do like this idea that when we're reading the New Testament, clean and unclean, I think in Western world we have this idea that one is good and one is bad. That's not necessarily how Jewish people thought about these terms. It was sacred and secular. It was prepared for ritual or not prepared for ritual. For example, a woman was unclean after she gave birth. There's no one in the Jewish culture that would tell you that is not a good thing. Of course it's a good thing for a woman to give birth and to contribute to the nation. It'd be all of the parts of this. It has nothing to do with good and bad. It's ritual, it's process, it's sacred or regular, and you prepare yourself for how you come back into God. And it's helpful for us to get that in our minds because I think it's hard for us sometimes. You know what I think?
I appreciate your language, Jason, about choice, and to take it maybe away from like this is a good choice or a bad choice, but to think about the language Jeremy shared, like you pointed out on the screen, about this is like a sacred choice or a common choice. And I think that we tend to talk around here about how so much of life is sacred, and the choice is to be open to the ways God will meet us in the very ordinary stuff of our daily lives. So I think there is definitely choice in that openness for sure.
Hey, thanks for watching through. If you are intrigued by the work that we're doing here at Commons, then by all means, give us a like, throw a comment down below, and subscribe here so you can stay up to date on all of the content that we're posting here on YouTube. We'd also love to invite you to join our Discord. You can do that in the link down below. There's all kinds of conversations that we're inviting in and through the community as we do our best to follow Jesus together. Of course, you can find more about Commons at commons.church and following @Commons Church on all the socials. Thanks for being here.